Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to After Hours Screen Talk. I'm Jesse, and definitely anyone who has been tuning into our channel will know that both my bro Dan and myself are huge fans of 80s movies. We just love that era of movie making, especially in the genres of sci fi, horror, and fantasy. And so it's been kind of interesting to see for years now studios looking back towards the 80s period and giving us a lot of new remakes, reboots, and adaptations of 80s IP. That said, we're getting another one very soon, The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright and starring Glenn Powell. So I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to look back at that original 1987 film, The Running Man, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which again was a childhood favorite. We watched that movie on repeat, like a lot of Schwarzenegger's movies, and I do think it's kind of an underrated sci fi film. It's cheesy as hell. It has those famously corny one liners, which are great, and it's a corny action spectacle. But I think it brings a little more to the table in the sci fi genre than it gets credit for. So, with that said, I just wanted to share my take and review of the movie and also just have fun going back to this era of 80s sci fi, which has just a unique flavor and stamp to it that you don't find anywhere else in any other period. If you haven't seen The Running Man, I'm going to touch on spoilers here, so that's your warning. The Running Man adapts Stephen King's novel of the same name, which King wrote under his pen name, Richard Bachman. But really, to call this movie an adaptation is probably not 100% accurate, since it really just takes the concept from King's novel and pretty much changes almost everything else and just significantly departs from the book. The movie stars, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger as Ben Richards, who is a wrongly convicted police captain forced to compete in a deadly game show. The film also features Maria Conchita Alonso as Amber Mendez, a composer who joins the resistance against the corrupt government. Then we have Richard Dawson playing Damon Killian, the ruthless host of the game show The Running Man. The cast includes other notable actors like Yaphet Kotto, who is probably most well known for Alien. Then we got Jesse Ventura, who plays one of the stalkers in the game show. Jesse Ventura also starred alongside Schwarzenegger in Predator, also released in the same year, 1987. So yeah, in this dystopian future, the totalitarian government has complete control over the media and uses television as a platform to propagate its propaganda to the masses, to deceive and brainwash them, to suppress any kind of dissent. On a side note, I thought it was kind of cool that The Running Man was released the same year as Paul Verhoeven's ROBOCOP. Now, even though both films are different from each other, they both share that dark satirical tone. They both explore similar themes of social control, media manipulation, corporate greed, and how corporations become the new political powers in these dystopian futures. They also portray excessive brutality and violence as an integral aspect of these futures, how the very governments are either complicit or outright endorsing the carnage to manipulate the masses and suppress dissent and control them. Also, just like RoboCop, The Running Man features these satirical news broadcasts and mock commercial segments. I'm thinking of one called Climbing for Dollars, and I love these little segments because they just take it to another level and bring home that idea of a society just utterly desensitized to violence and reliant on extreme forms of entertainment for catharsis. Now, turning to the action and violence in the movie, it is not as over the top or brutal or gory as a film like RoboCop, but it does have a cheesy, fun quality to it. And the stalker hunters, when they come on the scene, they are just utterly incompetent at their job. I mean, once Schwarzenegger enters the game show and starts taking them down pretty easily, actually, with little effort, really. That leads into all those cheesy one-liners spoken by Schwarzenegger throughout the movie, and I think The Running Man really has some of the best one-liners of his entire career. One of my favorites comes after he dispatches the stalker Subzero and says, "Killian, here's your Sub-Zero. Now, Plane Zero." They're just so cheesy and so great. The character of Sub-Zero is a nice segue into how I want to discuss the ways in which I think The Running Man is a little underrated in terms of its contribution to pop culture and sci-fi. And reason number one is Sub-Zero, because any gamer or video game fan will obviously draw connections with the character Sub-Zero from the Mortal Kombat game. And I looked it up, and yes, there is a connection between the character of Sub-Zero from The Running Man and the game Mortal Kombat. And The Running Man had an influence on the name of that character. The original name for the Sub-Zero character was Tundra, and one of the developers who was a fan of The Running Man suggested Sub-Zero as an alternative name, which famously became the name for that character. So that's a pretty amazing legacy for a film, to have that kind of influence on pop culture. And that's what you want, as a film. Reason number two is reality TV. So before reality television became this big global trend in pop culture with the rise of the internet and social media, you had a movie like The Running Man giving us its own dark, speculative, very sci-fi version of what reality TV could look like. And the way it operates in the movie is not too far off the mark from how it operates in the real world, in the way that any piece of entertainment content media, including reality TV, can become a form of mass distraction where it redirects public interest away from real problems going on, and in that way seems a little prescient, ahead of its time. Reason number three is the subject of deep fakes, and The Running Man perhaps gives us the most fully developed visualization of a deep fake on screen that we had up until that time. And it comes during a simulated fight sequence between Jesse Ventura and Arnold Schwarzenegger, where the game show studio wants to convince the audience that Schwarzenegger's character has been killed. So the way they do it is to superimpose Schwarzenegger's likeness and face onto a stunt double and deep fake it. And again, in that way, The Running Man seems ahead of its time, and that's what makes it good sci-fi. Its concepts are grounded in the reality around us and where it could be headed. And so that's what makes it kind of like convincing in a way, even as over the top as it is at times. Like I said, the 1987 movie makes significant changes to Stephen King's novel, and I think King was pissed off about that. Even Schwarzenegger's casting, I think, kind of pissed him off because he was nothing like the character in the book, who I think is described as scrawny, slight, and just not as much as a badass. And from what I hear, Edgar Wright's new movie is intended to be a more faithful adaptation of King's novel. So, that could be interesting. But that said, I still really, really enjoy the 1987 movie. It's a cheesy B-movie action sci-fi spectacle, but it also, I think, works as a piece of dystopian sci-fi. The concepts and ideas hit home, particularly in hindsight. They seem pretty on the mark and prescient. It's not a flawless film by any means. It's a B movie, but I think it deserves a little more credit sometimes than it's given. So with that said, let me know if you're looking forward to Edgar Wright's new adaptation and whether you plan to revisit the original 1987 movie too, and also just generally share your thoughts about that movie, and let me know your thoughts and share your take in the comments below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. We're having a lot of fun here sharing our thoughts and reviews with you all, and you can look forward to some more content coming your way soon. Be well, take care, and we'll see you next time here.